Welcome to Real Talk, Real Women, Breaking the Silence Around Abuse. I am Gemma Serenity Gorokoff, and today we have Melissa Range joining us. Welcome, Melissa. So, Melissa, my first question for you. Can you please introduce yourself with an emphasis on the kind of abuse you overcame in your life?
Of course. Thank you for having me. My name is Melissa Range, and I am a women's empowerment coach. And the kind of abuse that I went through was narcissism with a definite emphasis on mental, verbal, and emotional abuse. And I went through this for about 14 years. And actually, even to this day, I feel like there is still some of that abuse that I encounter with my ex-husband. But for me, there was a point in my life, I was a very confident woman, very outgoing, vivacious. And then I met my husband, and there started to be a lot of controlling, a lot of manipulation, a lot of jealousy. And I ended up marrying him, even though probably through my better judgment, I knew that it wasn't the best decision. But there were circumstances that I felt as though I should marry him when he asked. And I married into a very wealthy and a very powerful family. And when the time came for me to want to get out, when I knew that it wasn't a good place, I really felt inside there was no way for me to get out, because I was in such a place where how would I keep my children? How would I get any money? Because I was up against one of the most powerful litigators in the Midwest. And so that's kind of where my journey began, in trying to get out of this narcissistic. There was a lot of secrecy, a lot of things hidden from me. I found out later, years later, after I was divorced, that he had a trust fund. I didn't know anything about it. So there was a lot of factors involved, and there became a lot of fear in me, and I started to isolate. I started to become numb to my feelings. And I was really, really scared, and I felt a lot of desperation. But again, I didn't know. I'm a very petite woman, and I was up against a very big man. He's a very big man, 6'3". And so I was very afraid for my life at points, but a lot, again, of gaslighting, and a lot of emotional, mental abuse that I went through. And that's where it began.
And when you imagine before you actually met that person, it is a known fact that when we are strong, outgoing, joyous, light, loud, and beautiful, we are one of the ideal attraction point for this kind of person, because they want to get some of your light, some of your joyousness and all of that. But before you met your husband, of that moment in time, did you, how was your upbringing? Just happy-go-lucky, or already a little bit bumpy?
No, my upbringing was, I was a very happy-go-lucky person. I was very ambitious. I was very well liked. I had lots of friends. I traveled in Europe. I studied abroad. I had very big corporate jobs where I was fluent in Spanish. I was teaching Spanish. I was using my language. I became a very successful saleswoman in my mid-20s, and I was making a lot of money. And I was just one of those people, although looking back, I could see my codependence was there. So it was really about codependence and about being an empath. And I feel like people were drawn to my energy, just like you said, because I was so energetic. I was so friendly. I wasn't afraid of anything. And that's where the attraction came in, because before my husband came into the picture, I had dated lots of men, and I had been in lots of relationships and done many, many kind of out of the box, what people would call out of the box experiences. But I was a very happy person. I was raised by parents who I knew loved me, and I was raised in the Catholic religion. So there was a lot of the fear of God within me. and about being a selfless person and not taking care of myself or making myself a priority. But overall, I mean, I had everything I could ever need as a young person. And my dad was always pushing us to step into something bigger and greater, like to just be the best, because my father actually had polio as a young boy, and he never let that stop him from going after what he wanted. And I'm very much like him. And so I was always doing that. And people noticed. And yeah, so I did have a really fabulous, I mean, again, I did grow up in an alcoholic home where my mom stopped drinking when I was 7, but I still felt very loved and cared for as a young person. But there is, of course, the back again, when you look back in your life, I could see how my mom wasn't valued by my father the way I think she should have been. And I see that a lot in some of these older type relationships where the woman is the subservient woman, or she's the one who takes care of everything, but is never thanked, or no one's grateful for what she's doing. But overall, I know I was loved and cared for. And so, yes, that's kind of how I was raised.
Can imagine that. And as I was also raised in a church, it was, I think, evangelical, apostolical. There was also that entire selflessness, like always giving nature, others focused, but to a point of forgetting ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that is where it becomes like, you have to find the right balance. And I understand now also a little bit more how you could have made that choice to go with someone who you already knew was not that good for you. But there is also a reality. When we are making such a decision, I guess you were pretty young, like in your 20s when you made that decision, right?
I was, when I got married?
Yeah.
No, I was 29.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a little bit later.
Yes.
But still allowing yourself to make a choice that you did not feel was the absolute right one. You did not feel in perfect alignment. You did not feel so much in love that it was the best thing ever in your life. You felt already a little bit obligated, already like, I should actually walk in line.
Yes. Well, what happened was I broke up with him and said, I don't think you want to get married, but we've been dating for a while. We've had all of these things in common. We seem to have a great time. What's the problem? Well, and he wouldn't ask me to marry him, and I wanted that commitment. And so then I broke up with him. And he came back 2 weeks later and asked me to marry him. And that's when I said yes. Now, in the moment, I knew I wanted to be with him because I had just broken up with him 2 weeks before. But there was all that excitement and euphoria about being engaged. And that's what I'd wanted all along, because I thought he was the right person for me. But then a year into my marriage, I realized, because his behavior changed, right? And so I had subliminally, I had seen the signs, but I was too afraid to stick to my guns. And also I thought, I will change him, or he will get better, or things will get better, but they didn't. And so we had reverted right back to his previous behavior, but this time it was actually worse. And so that's when I knew, but I couldn't think about divorce, because I also was Catholic and I didn't want to get a divorce. I mean, good Catholic women, they stick through things through thick and thin. They don't give up. And you know what else? I believe things like, if I get a divorce, I might go to hell. Or if I get a divorce, what will my parents think? I failed. I will have looked like I failed in society. I didn't try hard enough. I should overlook certain things in my marriage, because that's what good Catholic women do. They just push it to the wayside, or they stuff it down, and then breast cancer gets them, or they have a heart attack in their 40s because they're so stressed out. And that's the way I lived, was continually stuffing it and continually putting on a smile and making my children look beautiful, and everything looks perfect from the outside looking in. That's how I lived my life.
I truly understand. This is why I identify the audience who absolutely love to listen to our show as being victims hiding in plain sight by showing up absolutely gorgeous, perfect family picture. Everything is perfect and everything is fine. And it's so like enviable. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, do not scratch the surface. Do not ask too much questions. It's like, no. I cannot tell you really, oh, do not come at night, and all the stuff like that.
Yeah, I say we never know what's going on behind closed doors.
You know that these closed doors, I remember when I was dating about 16 years old and I was highly in love. Every time I heard the lock of the door, I was there, ooh, super excited, aroused, because I knew that good things would happen. But later on, when I was in my 2 different abusive marriages, especially the second one, locking the door was like, gosh, what's happening now? I think I have the monster now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like angel, monster. It's like, oh, it's not possible. How do you manage that? You get out. That is how you manage that, right? So, Melissa, I understand that at some point you just said, okay, I will have to consider divorce. What happened in your mind, or what story, or what inspiration, what clicked you into deciding, okay, I will go through the shame of divorcing?
So I had joined a group called Al-Anon. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's for friends and families of alcoholics. So my sister has been in the program AA for a long time, and she's my younger sister. And she was watching me deteriorate. She was watching me isolate. She was watching me cry a lot. She was watching me just go down the tubes, you could say. And she kept coming over to my house or calling me, checking in, and she would mention this program, Al-Anon. And so finally, about, I don't know, a couple of years after her mentioning this, I decided to go with her. And this actually was just in May. I had 15 years in this program. So, and I've done a lot of mentorship and a lot of sponsoring over the years, which has been wonderful. But I'd been in that program for about 14 months. And no one in the program, even through sharing my experience, no one had told me to get a divorce, because we don't tell other people what to do. We just let them figure it out themselves through listening, through watching. And I was walking down my hallway in my home one morning, early one morning. I had gotten up early before my family, and I was going to do my usual meditation, my usual quality time for me, which I had started because of Al-Anon. So I was self-caring. And I was walking down the hallway of my house, noticing all the pictures on the wall and noticing my home and where I lived and all the material things I had. And in that moment, I realized I hated myself. I hated my life, and I had a 5-star life. I had everything I could ever want. I had very nice vacations. I lived in a beautiful home. I had 3 healthy children. Again, from the outside looking in, everything was perfect. And in that moment, I realized fully, I hate who I am. Who have I become? Who is this woman? Who is she now? And I went into my living room, and I had this picture of Jesus. At the time, I was very Catholic. I had this picture of Jesus, and I knelt down and I began crying. And I said to Jesus, I said, I don't know what to do anymore. And I'm surrendering in this moment. And I'm turning it over, because I don't know if I should get a divorce. I don't know if I should stay married. I didn't know what to do anymore, because I had tried and so many things to save my marriage, therapy and counseling and Al-Anon and all these books and things like that. And I'd done an intervention. I'd done everything I could think of. and none of it was leading me to a feeling better. And so in that moment, I just let it go. And I said, you do what's best for me. And that's the moment that my whole life shifted. And from there on out, things started to come about. And this is how life works. When I surrendered and I decided that I didn't know what to do, it's like I let my higher self, my greater self, spirit, whatever you call it, step in and help me begin the process to do what was best for me, which was leaving. But I didn't know in that moment that's what was going to happen. I only surrendered and turned over everything. And that's when it started to shift. So that was huge.
It's a huge step. When you choose to surrender, it's indeed a very huge step, because it really it empowers you to trust and have faith in a way you have never had faith before. And because of that faith that you will do what's best for me, it's the same level of faith than someone going to surgery and say, you know what, everything is going to be okay. And just like let it go and release, and do not attach anything about the way. Know with absolute certainty the outcome is the best outcome possible. This is what you do when you actually surrender to Jesus Christ or to whoever or to your higher self, because it's actually allowing the best to happen. And from there, indeed, things clicks, arrange, possibilities show up, you become more aware. Suddenly, you follow through an idea, even though you don't know really where that comes from. It's pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. How long did it take from that key transformation moment until you were actually gone?
From that moment, it was August, September, October, November, 5 months, more or less 5 months, maybe a little bit less. But the time that I was in that window was very, very brutal, because I had to live in the home with him. And I was very afraid for my life, because he was getting very angry because he knew I was going to leave. And it was less than 5 months, I think. So that's how fast it was. But all I kept doing was keeping my eye on the date I was moving and allowing things to unfold and relying upon family members and people who were supportive of me to really guide me through the process of getting out of that house. And so it was actually relatively quick, but I was also willing to leave without as much as I started with. And so I gave up a lot of things to have my freedom and have my peace of mind and my safety.
It's amazing. I'm just going to talk a little bit about freedom, because it's a very interesting idea and concept. I was also realizing that freedom is also in the Constitution of the United States, in the Constitution of France as well, and probably a few other. And what I realize is that the moment you receive freedom, what happens? This is when you actually must take responsibility yourself. You must make your own choice yourself. You must dare to choose something. And as soon as you choose something, all the other things, you cannot choose them anymore, because you have only one moment in time. It's now you have one set of resources that you choose to put in one source or another. And it becomes like, well, so now what I started to actually complete is freedom from bondage, freedom from persecution, freedom from emotional pain, or freedom from alcohol. You know, that level of freedom from something, that becomes very, very a positive, uplifting voice. When you just take freedom as a concept alone, it's like, yeah, it doesn't last at all, because you make immediately a choice that actually cancels out your freedom on the spot, because you just made that commitment and that choice to do that and that. I mean, okay, it's an interesting It's an interesting concept.
It is. It is. And I will tell you the moment when this was a beautiful story for me, is I moved back into my old house that my husband and I still owned, and we had had hundreds of people walk through our house and nobody put an offer on it. So this is how the divinity works, right? This is how life works when we surrender, make a decision, and then follow through. So I moved right back into our old house. And I woke up the next morning and I didn't have my children. They had spent the night with their father. And I was sitting in my favorite chair and I was doing my meditations and my readings and my journaling. And I look out the window and a dove lands right on my fence. And I knew, and right now I'm getting a vibration because it was such a beautiful moment. It was just literally the next morning after I had moved. And this dove lands right there. And I just started sobbing because I felt such peace waking up in my own home. And I didn't even have a bed at the time. I slept on the couch because I didn't have a bed. My house was a disaster, but I was free. I was free from the bondage. I was free from the abuse in that space with him. I had spent the night in a space that I knew he wasn't going to wake me up, or he wasn't going to, say something that was negative or critical. It was total freedom from that abuse. And I felt so alive and different. And that dove was just a symbol of confirmation. And it was beautiful.
Definitely. And exactly that freedom from abuse, freedom from negativity, that freedom from something that hurts, that's the best thing, because you actually experience the law of polarity with the contrast between it hurts so much and now it's just like completely peaceful. And it's like, wow. And you become totally aware and conscious of those big difference. That's amazing. So Melissa, my third and last questions. Can you tell us a little bit about your business? How do you currently help people? What do you offer? Who do you love to have as clients?
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to go a little bit back too and share. This is something that I discovered in the last year, is that women don't chase their dreams and desires. Or, for example, they don't leave a marriage or leave an abusive relationship because of 3 reasons. They have lack of confidence, they have lack of support, and they have lack of money. And those are 3 of the big reasons why women are stuck, or they don't feel like they're worthy enough to chase something or go after something. So once I'd left my husband's house, I started on a journey, of course, of self-healing. And I delved into so many different modalities, read hundreds of books, really went into like a cocoon of babying myself and working on myself. And I became a Reiki master teacher in several forms of Reiki. I started working on people with Reiki. I started coaching and mentoring people. And from there, that led to becoming a firewalk instructor. So I became a certified firewalk instructor and walked on fire, did many exercises that were really scary for me. But all the while, what I was looking for was releasing my ego and getting rid of that part of me that was fearful of anything. Because when you go through a relationship where it's abusive, you're scared and you've got that residual that you need to clean up, or you need to let go of, or you need to face. And as one of my friends always says, face it, feel it, let God heal it. That's what I was doing. I was facing all my deepest, darkest shadows, those pieces of me that were broken. And so once I became a firewalk instructor, I came home, and 6 weeks later, I found out that I became a certified Akashic record reader, which is a medium. I had mediumship abilities. So I started doing a lot of readings for people, and people were coming to me from all over the place. I mean, just finding me through referrals. And what ended up happening was I was getting a lot of women who had been through what I had. And they had been abused. They were in manipulative narcissistic relationships. They didn't know how to get out. And some of these women, they wanted the money too, to be fair when they left, because they had supported their husband through 30, 40 years of marriage, and he was going to just cut him off with nothing. Kind of like the way my marriage was too. We will give that woman nothing, was one of the things that my former father-in-law said. And I thought to myself, this is crazy. I deserve equal. I deserve equal. And so I started mentoring and coaching women, and people just kept coming back to me and coming back to me. So over time, and all the while I'm in priestess school, I'm getting more certifications in money coaching. So all the while I've been mentoring and helping women, I'm also working on myself. And actually, that's one of the things I'm always trying to better myself. And so today, through my women's empowerment coaching, I'm always helping them find support. I'm always helping them find their confidence, pushing their edge. I like to call it pushing their edge, helping them step into something that scares them, because every time they do that, they become more confident and their self-esteem rises and they feel better about themselves. And even if there's a woman who maybe feels like her marriage is not working for her and maybe someday she wants to leave, she's building that muscle within herself to say, I'm good enough, I'm worthy, I can do it. And the other piece, of course, is that we need to feed, as women, we need to feed ourselves to make ourselves a priority, because so many women don't do that. So I teach them that too. And then the last piece, of course, is the money piece. And women need money to take care of themselves and their families. A lot of times, what I've noticed is women are saying, I can't do that because I don't have the money. Well, it's because they don't believe that they are worthy of creating the money, or that the money is in the universe for them, wanting for them. So I also teach women how to make money. And I do that through a digital marketing program to help them get set up to do their own business. And then they can resell the marketing program to others to make income. And so those are the things that I've been doing. And on top of that, I want to have these workshops. They're called the Whole Woman series, where women will break boards. They will also break arrows with their neck. They will walk on broken glass, and then they will firewalk. And that's what I'm creating now. And that's an exciting part of my work, because it's something, when you do something like break a board, and it's called the Maiden Workshop, you find a piece of yourself that maybe you lost. And it will help you to anchor that in. Each one of the exercises is meant to anchor that in. And then the other piece, again, is the money piece, because I get a lot of women saying, well, I can't come to your workshops, or I can't pay for your workshops. But if they had this stream of income that was coming in, they would be able to do that. And so that's where I help women as well.
That is truly beautiful, Melissa. And just a last word, and then we're going to wrap up. In 2007, I was led to walk on fire in a specific group with the entire brainwash that comes before, in order to be actually able to do that safely, with a big warning: you just don't go alone thinking you can. It's really, we have some big mental conditioning to have done before doing that kind of amazing things. But indeed, we all have the inner ability to do seemingly impossible things, because everything we experience is because we believe that to be thing or that, this or that. Because we believe fire to burn, we get burned. And I remember that we had to believe fire to be foam, that we were actually able to walk on foam. That's what we were telling our brain. And when you walk on foam, it doesn't burn. Therefore, my feet were not burned. But to get the brain and the mental and our perception to completely shut down the fear of the fire and say, I'm working on foam, 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 and you work actually on real coil, like 800-degree real fire. It's crazy and absolutely amazing. But the most beautiful part of it is the inner shift when you realize that you can accomplish the impossible because you believe something different. And you do not follow that generally accepted principles that fire burns. And that is true for anything. And you just mentioned it, breaking boards, breaking a code with your throat. I mean, just think of that. You cannot do that. Yeah, okay, so let me condition you and you will. Whoa.
Yes. Anything is possible, anything. And that's really what my work is, to remind women of, that anything is possible. And even if you're afraid, if you just take those baby steps, collect facts. I tell women all the time, just go collect the facts. Collect the facts about what it would look like to get a divorce. Collect the facts about what it would look like if you needed to protect your children in some way. Just collect facts. Go collect the facts. Start putting those in your back pocket or putting them in a manila folder. And when I went to go walk on fire, I didn't know what was going to happen. I signed up for the course and I went there, and the first day there, this man, after I walked on fire twice, he said, "Wait till Saturday, Melissa." And I said, "What's Saturday?" He said, "You've got to walk 108 times on the fire or you won't get your certificate." So in that moment, I said, "What? That wasn't on the website. Are you kidding me?" And he said, "No, I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you." And so it formed a lot of anxiety in me, just like when I decided to leave my husband, right? I was a ball of anxiety, but I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And I just kept trusting, and I just kept having faith. And I just kept thinking, something's got my back and I can do it. And if I can do this, or if I can listen to women who've walked through this before, through abuse and rape and all this stuff, then I can do it too. And that's kind of like one of the mantras I live by. And if I see somebody walk through the fire and stand on the fire, I think to myself, well, if they can do it, so can I. And I've really got into that space. And I hope that's what your listeners can hear, that if this woman can do it, so can I. I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know what it's going to look like. But if she can do it, so can I. And you tap into places that feed that courage, that feed that confidence, that feed you, and let go of all the chatter and all of the things that are negative, and you just start focusing and getting in that space, in that zone of being positive. I can do it, whatever it looks like. And then the universe brings it to you. It brings you the people that want to raise you up and lift you up and support you.
I truly love it. Melissa, you are such an inspiration. I think I'm going to call this episode, "If She Did It, So Can You."
I love it.
I think that's important. I think that's key. Mm-hmm. Because that's really the key point of this episode. If she did it, so can you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And nothing is impossible. Like you said, nothing is impossible. And women forget how valuable we are. Women forget. It's so, we just have to start reminding each other that we are valuable, and that we are worthy, and that we are enough, and that we can do it. We can do it. So find people like that.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy and grateful. Thank you so much for welcome today. Melissa, all your details to reach out to you are in the description of this episode. So making sure that we have it all ready to share. Melissa Range, simple R-A-N-G-E, and Melissa M-E-L-I-S-S-A for those who are listening. I am Gemma Serenity. It was Real Talk, Real Women. breaking the silence around abuse.